Guys, I've flown all the way to DC. I thought it'd be nice to spend day 100 recording together, and neither of you are here.
Well, sorry, Martha. I'm in Ottawa, Canada. I spoke to a guy. He said, Ottawa, it's known as the boring town. We have dinner, we go to bed at 9 and repeat. And I thought, my kind of town.
I'm in Detroit because the man of the moment, the man of the podcast, the man of the last 100 days, Donald J. Trump, he will be here in Detroit, Michigan over the day ahead to mark this extraordinary, consequential 100 days.
I'm James Matthews.
I'm Martha Kelner.
And I'm Mark Stone.
And on day 100 of Trump 100, we'll be taking stock of everything that's happened in the last 100 days, because it's been busy.
I was saved by God to make America great again.
Within hours of taking the oath of office, I declared a national emergency at our southern border. I called him Governor Trudeau because they should be the 51st state.
We have to have Greenland. It's not a question of do you think we can do without it.
We are moving at Trump speed.
Make America wealthy again.
Hey, hey, ho, ho! Elon Musk has got to go!
We will make mistakes, but we'll act quickly to correct any mistakes.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too. We'll own it.
Air Force One is currently in international waters for the first time in history, flying over the recently renamed Gulf of America.
The cost of eggs has come down like 93, 94%. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. But right now, you don't. You're playing cards. You're playing cards. You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. People were jumping a little bit out of line. They were getting yippy, they were getting a little bit yippy. Could you imagine Biden doing this? I don't think so. I don't think so.
So, as we've said, I'm in Canada covering the election. Mark, you're in Detroit, Michigan, because Donald Trump, he's giving his big 100-day speech there on Tuesday night. We'll talk more about all of that in a bit. But Martha, let's start with what was pretty much Donald Trump's first move of his second term, declaring a national emergency on the border and launching what he claims is the biggest mass deportation program in US history.
Yeah, immigration's become Donald Trump's signature issue. His approval ratings on immigration are higher than on other issues like the economy and the cost of living, although actually, interestingly, his approval rating, even on immigration, is declining at the moment. You'll remember on the campaign trail, he spoke about executing the biggest mass deportation operation in history, this crackdown on illegal immigration, and he wasted no time bringing that into action. Within 13 minutes of becoming president, he declared this national emergency on the southern border. And I don't know if you remember, but on Inauguration Day, I was in the Mexican town of Piedra Negra. It's just over the border from Texas. I was in this migrant shelter. And I spoke to a lady named Erica Mendoza. She's from Guatemala. And she'd been waiting for months for an asylum appointment. She'd finally got this appointment in the books with immigration officials. And then Donald Trump's order came through, essentially shutting down application appointments that very second. She was in tears as she told me this story, how she's been sharing a bed with her 10-year-old son for months, really, with this American dream in mind. And 100 days in, I caught up with Erica again.
Enero es, pues no tengo ningún plan. Solo me quedé esperando porque
time essentially has stood still for her since that moment. She's still waiting in Piedra Negra, hoping against hope that something will change in Donald Trump's immigration profile, that there will be some window that opens for her to gain access to the United States.
Martha, I remember that interview very, very well. For me, it brought home and it made clear so quickly and so early on that Donald Trump was going to have a profound change on this country. And at times, for some people, it would be very painful.
I think, with the flick of a pen, Donald Trump changed the lives of people like Erica Mendoza, who were waiting in the hope that they would eventually be able to begin the American dream as they see it, but also people within the United States. You know, he has shaken immigrant communities to their very core.
Yeah, in those first few days, he not only cancelled so many immigration appointments, but he sent troops to the southern border, troops and hardware to crack down on people crossing. ICE officials went into cities right across this country. In fact, today in Dearborn, not far from Detroit, we saw ICE official vehicles on the streets. They are going into communities, finding out who is here illegally, and kicking them out. And in doing so, they are testing the constitution of this country. But Donald Trump is doing what he promised.
Yeah, a lot of this is about optics, isn't it? And people will see those pictures of the southern border so quiet, where previously there were hundreds and thousands of people trying to get into the United States. And they will see that as Donald Trump doing the job that he promised that he would do and cracking down on people coming over the border. So definitely from a PR point of view, it's a victory. But the legal system is bearing the brunt of a lot of the actions that Donald Trump is taking on immigration. That's probably been highlighted most of all by the case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, hasn't it?
Yeah, that's a case I covered one of the hearings, Martha. And interestingly, I mean, there was a crowd there and they were angry at the actions of Donald Trump. But, you know, they were embarrassed. And I was struck by how many Americans came up to us as a British crew and they said, look, thanks for covering this. And sorry about, you know, the state our country's in. That was their view. And it struck me then that, you know, Americans in this time, they've actually lost their confidence, many of them. But yeah, they were at that court that day. The judge hauled the government over the coals to limited effect so far. And that's the question. You know, does the Trump administration actually pay attention to what they are told by the courts? Do they respect the rule of law?
But, you know, I think more than a loss of confidence among a proportion of people here, I've been struck too that for a country where, and you guys will both know this, people are so happy to talk about politics, and yet not anymore. I find it so much harder to get people to share their views about politics on either side of the aisle. There seems to be almost a fear about expressing your view now.
And I tell you something, I'm in Canada right now. I was at the ice hockey the other night asking people about Trump, and everybody's got a view on Donald Trump, interestingly. Polling closes in a couple of hours as we record this on Monday evening. It's been a remarkable campaign. Carney's Liberals were dead and buried before January, but two things happened. Trudeau stepped down. Canada had grown weary of him and his party. But Trump started banging on about making this place the 51st state, annexing Canada. Suddenly, the Liberal Party fortunes just went vertically up, largely because of Carney and his style of campaigning. He is, of course, the man we would recognise in the UK as the former governor of the Bank of England. He styled himself as the anti-Trump versus the conservative Pierre Poilievre, as many people call him, the mini Trump.
Just on that point, James, he is one of the few, if not maybe the only world leader who has stood up to Donald Trump, who has called him out in a way that so many of them have been very reluctant to do, right?
Yeah, and he's gained from it, Mark, in the polls. You know, he says that Trump is a threat, an existential threat to Canada, and that has chimed with Canadians.
Canada, though, is far from the only foreign country that's felt the shockwaves caused by Donald Trump in the last 100 days. While Canada, along with Mexico and China, they were the first country to be hit by tariffs. On Liberation Day earlier this month, Trump slapped tariffs on imports on almost every country in the world.
Yeah, that Liberation Day moment was truly extraordinary. Literally, he would have had every world leader tuning into him at that moment. It was a game show in a sense. It was TV, a made-for-TV moment with the boards up there and countries one by one, kind of like the Eurovision Song Contest, could discover what their score was. I mean, absolutely bizarre. Trump to a T. And then, within just a few days, he said everyone was getting yippy and he announced a 90-day freeze on those tariffs. The impact, though, on the economy globally is proof, if one were needed, of that old saying that when America sneezes, the whole world gets a cold, or at least the whole world knows about it very, very quickly indeed. We talked about Carney being the only world leader pretty much who has decided that it is in his interests, because he has an election right now and he is an immediate neighbor, to stand up to Donald Trump. But even the Chinese, with whom perhaps the most serious tariff war is ongoing now, the Chinese leader, we haven't seen him actually standing up and calling out Trump. No one other than Carney is willing to do that quite just yet.
President Trump, of course, has had a parade of world leaders arriving at the White House in the last 100 days. More recently, they've mainly been coming cap in hand, as it were, to try to avoid the worst repercussions of those tariffs and to negotiate favorable deals for their own countries. But back at the start of February, Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel, he was the first foreign leader to visit Donald Trump.
Yes, and that moment provided one of the first major surprises of this 100 days. The moment Donald Trump announced he was going to buy Gaza. Did he just say it? I remember turning to a colleague next to me. Did he just say that? Yes, he did. And even Netanyahu looked surprised.
I think what it demonstrated, Mark, was naivety in the extreme. Certainly a lack of sensitivity towards the Gazans. The assumption that the Gazan people would ever be decanted or relocated to Egypt and Jordan. I mean, the international community, anybody who's dealing with that particular situation would realize that was a non-starter. And of course, it was followed up by adverts cheerfully retweeted by the White House about, portraying Gaza as a holiday camp.
It's amazing that that actually happened, isn't it? That the White House tweeted out this AI-generated video of Musk and Trump and Netanyahu treating it like it was another Dubai, basically. I think sometimes there have been so many astonishing twists and turns in this first 100 days that you forget about that. I forgot that had even happened until you just mentioned it now. Yeah, it's been the most bizarre, wild first 3 months in charge.
Yeah, 2 points I'd make on Gaza, though. The first is that naive, yes, maybe, insensitive, certainly, but provocative, absolutely. And what did it do? Well, it did make other countries, especially those in the Middle East, who clearly do not want to see America occupying another part of the Middle East. It made them sit up. It made them think. They all recognize now, more than perhaps they did before Trump came out with those comments, that it is in their interests to do something about the Gaza problem. That's the first point. The second I'd make is that remember, one very early material success of the Trump administration was securing the ceasefire in Gaza. It was Steve Witkoff, the kind of Swiss Army knife, as he has become, of Donald Trump's administration, sent out to fix every world problem, even though he's a real estate agent or mogul from New York. He apparently has the skills to be able to sort out the world. And it looked at the beginning as though maybe he was going to do that because the Gaza ceasefire came in. But look where it is now. It has gone backwards.
Yeah, I wonder about Steve Witkoff, Mark. Swiss Army knife, yeah, made in Taiwan, I reckon. Right now, actually, the vision of Steve Witkoff face-to-face with Vladimir Putin is one that now it just looks like man against boy in terms of international diplomacy. There are two episodes, aren't they, defining, I think, for Donald Trump. Trump's changing stance on Ukraine. Who could forget, first of all, Zelenskyy in the Oval Office, the shouting match, J.D. Vance weighing in, Trump berating, denigrating Zelenskyy as he sat there. Then just this weekend, we saw that picture of Trump and Zelenskyy together in a room in the Vatican, so close to each other, their knees were almost touching. It was an image that seemed to suggest a rebuilding of bridges burnt in the Oval Office. And Trump, he's claiming a deal is close.
I do wonder, looking at that image, whether Trump is actually slowly gaining a respect for Volodymyr Zelenskyy, because remember, he hasn't really moved. So many times over the past 100 days, Trump has tried to push Zelenskyy to do something he doesn't want to do. And every time he is stuck to his guns. And I wonder whether, Trump's a guy who he respects strength. And I think he maybe is seeing that in Zelenskyy.
Did either of you read the interview with Donald Trump in the Atlantic magazine that was published today?
Yeah, I saw it earlier.
Been too busy, Martha.
It's an incredible piece. In it, the journalist asks him, what's the difference between your first term and your second term? And he replies, the first time I had two things to do, run the country and survive. The second time I run the country and the world. It's a bombastic claim, but if the last 100 days have shown us anything, it is that the impact of Donald Trump's second term isn't confined to the United States. It's been so much more than that. The impact of the shifts in alliances, particularly, will last well beyond his time in the Oval Office.
Yeah, and he also looks to be enjoying himself, doesn't he? He looks like he is enjoying the presidency in a way that he couldn't during his first term because obstacles were put in his way. This time, he has no obstacles. And in just 100 days, I'd argue that he has firmly cemented his position as the most consequential world leader yet this century. He's kind of America first, and he says it all the time. He's turning inward, and yet he's not an isolationist. He wants to expand America, Greenland, Canada, the Panama Canal. These are land-grabbing intentions that were once laughed off, and yet in 100 days, they have become such deadly serious issues.
Yeah, Donald Trump, he's the businessman who's changed the way America does business. His America First philosophy, that's put old allies last, like this place, Canada. Old alliances have been shed for new friends. That's just in the first 100 days. Trump's America has taken a handbrake turn, a disruptor, no doubt, but where the destination is, I think that's a great uncertainty.
And I've asked quite a lot of people in positions of relative power over the past few days about the extent to which they think that this is a blip or have things changed so profoundly that they can never go back to what they were before. All of them said to me, no, this is a new world we're in now. Things are not going to return to the place they were before. That is how consequential he has been. And of course, domestically as well, executive power, the power of the president, it seems to be everything. His constitution-defying clashes with the courts and judges, they're not normal for a country like the United States, and yet they're becoming routine. And before any of us has time to drill down on the impact of each of these clashes, we're on to the next moment. Of course, it's all intentional. It's this whole idea of flooding the zone. You cannot keep up.
The business of flooding the zone, that's absolutely a feature of this PR presidency. I think you used the phrase, Mark, it's like drinking from a fire hose. That's exactly what it is. And of course, what that does is it minimizes scrutiny of everything that comes out of the White House.
I think what we're seeing right now, for good or for bad, is a revolution. But the problem is that we're watching it at such close focus. We're kind of watching it through a straw. That no one can yet quite see what all of this will actually mean. And it will be in a few years' time when everyone has had the chance to take a step back, and will we see just how much of a significant and consequential moment this has been.
Prize for Metaphor of the Year goes to Mark Stone, ladies and gentlemen.
That was
looking
brilliant.
for a straw.
A paper straw or a plastic straw. A lot's happened in the last 100 days. And so, Martha...
Yeah, James, we've got a little challenge for you. The listeners of Trump 100 now know you as James the Voice Matthews. We want...
I'm sure they absolutely don't.
Well, we wanted to put that famous voice to the test. So I've got 100 seconds. It's 1:40 on the clock here. And you've got until it gets to 0 to try tell us about as many things as you can that have happened in Trump world over the past 3 and a bit months.
That's going to be too easy, James. We've made it a bit harder because you've got 6 words that you've got to get into this challenge. We want to hear deportations, tariffs, Zelenskyy, yippee, Doge, and eggs.
You've got 1:40 seconds and your time starts now.
Right, okay. Well, eggs, the price has gone up. I was in a restaurant a couple of weeks ago and there was a note on the table apologizing for the price. They had gone up 500%, said this restaurant. Doge, Elon Musk's outfit, of course. Who can forget the defining image again of the first 100 days? Elon Musk on stage with the Argentinian president, waving a chainsaw in the air. Yippee. Donald Trump said that tariffs are making people yippee. Now, that's a golf term. That's used for golfers who have the yips, who can't make a putt. I'm not sure how that relates to actually half the world running around with its hair on fire about collapsed economies. Zelenskyy, we've all seen him over the years come to visit Biden, turn up as with this polite exhaustion, hailed as a hero by Congress, ripped to shreds by Donald Trump in the Oval Office. And we've spoken about that. Just not good. Tariffs, clearly the big story. I'm in Canada, and it's all the talk. There's going to be huge effect on the Canadian economy. Mark Carney could be the next Prime Minister. He says it's an existential threat, and there is a risk that the Canadian economy will collapse because of it. Huge story, and will be for months, years to come. Could make or break him as president. Deportations are just a sad tale. My memory of deportations is the business of the tattoos. Sitting in the podcast studio with Martha, who tells me she's got a Yorkshire tea tattoo on her wrist. Now, if that doesn't get you sent to that notorious prison in El Salvador,
that's the timer, James the Voice Matthews. You've cracked it. Just a minute, eat your heart out. That's just 100 seconds.
And what a way to end the first 100 days. But anyway, before we go on this episode 100, what memory do you take away from podcasting for 100 days of Trump?
So many, isn't there? But I think I'd say my run-in with Marjorie Taylor Greene, just that idea of being in the halls of Congress, being told to go back to my own country by a sitting congresswoman, that takes the biscuit, I think.
Yeah, we got quite a response. For me, it would be sitting recording the podcast, DCA airport, the plane crash had happened, and the wreckage was actually just outside the window. And Donald Trump had been pointing the finger at DEI, the DEI hiring policy of air traffic controllers. Quite a story, quite a statement. What about you, Mark?
Buying Gaza, Liberation Day, and of course my complete lapse of judgment in allowing you to publish me singing Celine Dion. Terrible.
That was
I take it back. That's my highlight, actually. That's officially it for day 100 of Trump 100. But hopefully you know by now we're not stopping here. We'll be back tomorrow and the day after. We're continuing this podcast Monday to Friday at 6 a.m. And you can still get in touch with us, of course, on trump100@sky.uk.
Yeah, before we go, we wanted to thank everyone behind the scenes here, because none of this would have been possible. We wouldn't have been able to get beyond about day 2 without the small but brilliant team behind Trump 100. And so we want to thank all of them as well. Rosie Gillett, Emma Ray Woodhouse, Soila Aparicio, Emily Purser-Brown, Eleanor Dealey, Sarah Goff, Lauren Pinkney, Lucy Marley, Charlene Beaumansour, Daria Casalini, David Chipakapaku, Ed Young, Michael Hurd, Chris Pearson, Victoria Elms, Kirsty Hickey, Kenny Stewart, Adele Momoko Fraser, Philly Beaumont, and Paul Stanworth. You are all brilliant. Thank you very, very much indeed.
We'll see you tomorrow for day 101 of Trump 100. Bye-bye.
Bye.